ever get that gut feeling that, the game is rigged? That maybe the institutions were supposed to count on the courts, the media, even relationships. Sometimes they just operate by rules that seem, well, stacked against you. Well, you're definitely not alone in feeling that. Let's dive straight into it today because we're looking at an ebook that tackles this head on. It explores this idea that the foundations of our society have been fundamentally changed.
And change in a way, the author argues, that doesn't necessarily benefit everyone, particularly men.
Exactly. So what we have is this ebook that really tries to examine the history of our institutions and norms, but through a very specific lens.
A very provocative one, you could say. The core argument presented is that feminist and Marxist ideologies have really reshaped these structures.
And the result, tangible disadvantages for men in, well, quite a few areas of life. The book's stated mission is essentially to arm men with knowledge to understand and navigate this new landscape.
Right. And it's not just theory, is it? The book apparently draws on quite a mix of sources.
Yeah, things like court records, what it calls hidden data, evolutionary science, insights, media analysis, trying to build a case for a systemic shift.
And the structure itself tells a story. You look at the chapter titles. The Marriage Plantation, Guilty Until Proven Innocent, Secret Family Courts, Feminist Cultural Marxism, Male Suicide Epidemic, and it finishes with the Red Pill Roadmap.
Definitely signals the direction. It suggests a real deep dive into these themes from a, let's say, distinct viewpoint.
A very distinct viewpoint.
So if this sounds like something you want to explore further, we really encourage you to check out the full ebook. You can find it on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books. And hey, while you're thinking about it, hit that like and subscribe button for a show. We do deep dives like this regularly.
Absolutely. And for more along these lines, you should also follow @Conrad over on Substack.
Okay, let's get into the first big topic, the marriage plantation. Wow, that title alone sets a tone.
It really does. It immediately frames marriage not as a partnership necessarily, but as potentially disadvantageous for men in the modern context.
And they back this up apparently with stats like the claim that 73% of alimony victims, their term, are men.
Right, and they link this directly to no-fault divorce laws. Yeah. The interpretation here is key. The book argues the legal system makes men financially vulnerable in divorce, regardless of who did what.
Yeah, and it mentions that Forbes piece, the one calling alimony reparations for patriarchal oppression. Apparently the comments section, well, it got intense. Mentions of male suicide even.
Which underscores the high stakes the author believes are involved emotionally and financially for men going through divorce. It paints a pretty grim picture of the potential fallout.
And it's not just the legal stuff. They bring in mate selection. Citing a Tinder stat now, take this as presented, claiming 90% of women swipe right, mainly on guys earning six figures.
Mm-hmm. The idea being that women's preferences are sort of hardwired for resource extraction, as the book puts it. Then it contrasts historical dowries, where the man often receives something.
Right, with modern alimony, which they frame as this potential never-ending payment. It completely flips the traditional financial script.
Precisely. The argument is a fundamental inversion of marital financial dynamic, and they point to things like alimony insurance startup.
Wait, alimony insurance? Is that real?
Apparently so. The book presents it as men literally betting against their own marriages lasting, which is quite a stark indicator of the perceived risk.
Wow. Okay, so does it offer any fixes? Or just problems?
Well, it mentions tactical fixes. Prenups, for example.
Yeah.
Cites a stat 62% stick if signed 6 months before the wedding. Even suggests looking into Bermuda law for prenups. Interesting.
Bermuda law. Okay, but the bottom line conclusion for this chapter is pretty strong.
It is. The ebook essentially concludes that marriage, as it stands today, really only works for men if they're the ones setting the rules.
That's a heavy conclusion. It really advocates for a significant shift back in power dynamics within marriage.
That seems to be the core message of that section, yes. A reassertion of male control is a necessary step to mitigate these perceived risks.
All right, let's shift gears. The next chapter, Guilty Until Proven Innocent. This one tackles the justice system, or at least perceptions of it.
Yeah, it argues that a fundamental principle, innocent until proven guilty, is being eroded. It uses examples like a college student supposedly expelled just for ghosting someone.
Ghosting, expelled. Seriously.
That's the example given. And Title IX tribunals are brought up as well, suggesting a departure from traditional due process, especially on campuses.
And then there's that statistic, the claim that 1 in 10 men face false accusation.
Which is a really jarring number, if accurate. The book even mentions that false accusation prank trend on TikTok.
Oh, I think I heard about that. Terrible.
Right. The author uses it to highlight what they see as a dangerous disconnect, that the devastating impact of false accusations isn't fully understood or taken seriously by everyone.
They bring up the Emma Sulkovich case at Columbia, too.
Yes, as a key example, highlighting how the accuser received accolades, while the accused man, regardless of legal outcomes, faced severe professional consequences, making him essentially unemployable, the book claimed.
So the argument is that the accusation itself becomes the punishment, almost.
That's the implication, that the process or the public reaction can inflict damage even without a formal finding of guilt. It emphasizes this idea of male vulnerability.
Title IX, again, the book claims 40% of campus complaints under Title IX are baseless. 40%.
It's a huge number. And this leads to the suggestion, well, the rather unusual suggestion that men should wear recording necklaces.
Recording necklaces to document interaction.
As a form of self-protection, it paints a picture of a climate where men feel they need constant documentation just for everyday interaction.
That's quite something. Then it throws out even bigger numbers, like 262,000 bogus claims across NATO countries. And that wild story about the Carano guy.
The microwaved cat, which turned out to be a parakeet, and he lived in a yurt.
Yeah. It sounds almost unbelievable, but it's used to illustrate the potential for absurdity and injustice within these systems.
These extreme anecdotes serve to amplify the sense of risk, the feeling that men can be vulnerable to even bizarre accusations.
The chapter also mentions the Duluth model, funding for gender studies, and frames the feminist view of due process as a patriarchal construct.
Tying it back to the broader ideological critique. And it finishes by citing Joe Rogan's Due Process Fridays segments.
Right. Claiming they outperform Biden's approval rating, a clear nod to a specific audience sentiment there.
Trying to connect the issue to a perceived mainstream dissatisfaction with how accusations are handled.
Okay, next up. Secret family courts. The title itself suggests a lack of transparency and fairness.
Exactly. It dives right into the perception of bias against men in family law. We get anecdotes like a dad on Reddit supposedly stopped from teaching his son to weld because it was too masculine.
Too masculine. Wow. And the UCLA professor docking grades for toxic tone.
These examples are clearly chosen to resonate with concerns about anti-masculine sentiment influencing decisions in courts and even education. They definitely hit a nerve.
Then there's a really striking claim about evidence that 70% of family court evidence is hearsay, compared to just 2% in criminal cases.
That disparity is presented as a major issue, suggesting lower standards of proofs in family court that, the author argues, disadvantage men.
And the anecdotes get tougher. The Texas dad whose toddler's drawing was called Child.
Yes, or the Colorado mechanic losing his home after divorce. The Michigan guy supposedly trading toolboxes for gavels in protest.
Symbolic. It all paints a picture of lost agency, lost livelihoods.
Devastating consequences, presented as stemming directly from these court processes.
And it keeps going. The Minnesota dad and the Big Bird incident. The Florida father jailed for missing child support while he had cancer.
These are extremely emotive examples, likely intended to showcase the system as potentially arbitrary, punitive, and lacking compassion, especially towards fathers in difficult situations.
It's a very bleak portrayal of the family court system.
Deeply critical, yes.
Which leads into the next chapter, feminist cultural Marxism. This sounds like where the ebook tries to tie it all together ideologically.
Pretty much. It introduces this term, feminist cultural Marxism, as the underlying force supposedly undermining institutions. It draws that parallel. Proletariat versus bourgeoisie becomes oppressed identities versus straight white men.
Right, reframing social conflict through that specific lens. This is definitely getting into heavy theory.
It is. And it uses examples that might seem disconnected at first, like the idea of feminist algebra, where 2 + 2 = 5.
Okay.
Or the backlash against Disney's Snow White remake, suggesting Hollywood is maybe starting to feel pushback against this perceived agenda.
And it mentions alumni suing universities over donations being used for activism.
Yes, and the poor job prospects claim for gender studies grads. These are presented as real-world consequences of this ideology taking hold in institutions.
They highlight MIT reportedly cutting its gender studies program, followed by a spike in robotics engineering enrollment, 18%.
And Pew Research data showing STEM grads supposedly out-earning grievance studies majors by 150%. Bold claims trying to link academic focus to economic outcomes.
There's even a feminist opportunity cost theory mentioned, estimating a $1.2 trillion drain on U.S. productivity.
It's an attempt to quantify the perceived negative economic impact of these cultural and academic shifts, framing it as a massive financial burden.
Then it mentions Governor DeSantis defunding gender studies in Florida, linking it to tech growth in Tampa. And it gets darker, comparing the Stasi's use of critical theory.
And stories of students burning critical theory texts, replacing them with Adam Smith. It's strong stuff.
The final assertion is that critical theorists hate thinking and just hide behind jargon. A very dismissive conclusion.
Extremely critical. It paints this ideology not just as wrong, but as actively detrimental and intellectually bankrupt, according to the author.
Which brings us finally to the most sobering chapter. Male suicide epidemic. This connects all the previous threads to a tragic outcome.
Yes, it aims to draw a direct line from the issues discussed: divorce, courts, accusations to male suicide rates. The statistic cited is stark. 93% of male suicide victims reportedly had court contact within 2 years of their death.
93%. That's staggering. And the note that divorced men make up 20% of homeless populations, attributed to this papercut theory.
Death by 1,000 legal fees, essentially. The cumulative financial devastation from ongoing legal battle, it's presented as a major contributing factor to despair and homelessness.
And more difficult story. The Marine vet denied benefits based on Morse code links.
Unbelievable, if true. And revisiting the Florida father jailed during chemo for missing child support, these really hammer home the perceived inhumanity of the system.
Discusses the weaponization of Darwin, male disposability, and family court, concepts that are pretty bleak.
Very bleak. The idea that society, or the system, views men as expendable once they're no longer fulfilling a specific provider role. It even mentions an app, the Deadbeat Shield, for crowdfunding legal fees.
Which highlights the financial desperation some men apparently face in these situations.
Exactly. And the chapter ends by contrasting the historical rights of the Roman paterfamilias, the head of the household, with modern fathers needing permission for basic parenting.
Leading to that final, powerful statement.
The system's not broken, it's rigged. That really is the ultimate conclusion of the ebook's argument. It's not incompetence, it's intentional bias.
Wow. So, wrapping up this deep dive, it's clear the ebook presents a really challenging, often disturbing perspective. It argues that many institutions have been fundamentally changed to the detriment of men.
It's a perspective that definitely forces you to think, to question prevailing narratives. Whether you agree with every point or not, it raises important questions about fairness, due process, gender roles.
Absolutely. It's a starting point for your own investigation, your own critical thinking about these complex issues.
And if you want the full picture, the complete argument, and the proposed solutions laid out by the author,
then you really should grab the ebook. Again, it's available on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books. Dive in yourself.
Consider the implications, for your own life, for your community, for the way society is structured.
It definitely leaves you with that challenge. The need, as the book sees it, for men to recognize these issues and figure out how to respond proactively.
It really emphasizes the need to engage with different viewpoints, even uncomfortable ones, and analyze things critically.
And that's what we aim for here. If you found this deep dive valuable, please do like and subscribe. We'll be back with more in-depth exploration.
And don't forget to check out @ConradNyraker on Substack for more commentary on these kinds of topics.
Thanks so much for tuning into this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep thinking. And seriously, check out that ebook on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books if this discussion sparked your interest. Until next time.